skeletal muscle physiology, and we are particularly going to discuss the mechanics of muscle contraction in this lecture, including the general mechanism of contraction and the molecular mechanism of contraction. So the general mechanism of contraction, we have to have an understanding of the neuromuscular junction that we are going to discuss in detail in another lecture. Here you can simply appreciate this is the neuronal terminal which is present at the motor end plate of the sarcolemma. And we are going to have a look step by step how this transmission occurs leading to the skeletal muscle contraction. So starting from an action potential in the motor neuron is propagated to the terminal bouton that is present at the neuromuscular junction. What this action potential do? It will depolarize the neuronal terminal, which will lead to the opening of the calcium channels. As you can see, appreciate over here, this opening of neuronal membrane by depolarization is leading to opening of the calcium channels, which leads to influx of the calcium into the neuronal terminal or terminal bouton. This entry of the calcium leads to exocytosis of the acetylcholine vesicles, and acetylcholine is now released into the synaptic terminal or the neuromuscular junction, and this acetylcholine is ready to attach to its receptor. Now, the receptors of this acetylcholine are present on the motor end plate, the acetylcholine gated receptor channels, or you can call them ligand gated channels. These are non-specific cation channels which lead to influx of majorly sodium as the concentration of gradient of potassium is on the opposite side. This opening of the acetylcholine gated channels is leading to influx of the sodium, which leads to the production of a potential change called end plate potential. Be mindful, attachment of acetylcholine to these acetylcholine gated channels brings a minor change in the potential of the muscle membrane, which is enough to lead to the end plate potential, which is a local potential and is not a true action potential. However, if adequate quantities of acetylcholine are released, leading to the production of ample magnitude of end plate potential, this may lead to opening of voltage gated sodium channels present around the sarcolemma. The motor end plate, it has acetylcholine gated sodium channels or non-specific cation channels. Opening of this leads to end plate potential production, and this end plate potential, when propagates to the neighboring voltage gated sodium channels, these channels are open. And if these channels open, there is a large magnitude of sodium influx, which if reaches the threshold can lead to the formation of the action potential on the muscle membrane or the sarcolemma. So there was first action potential on the neuronal terminal, release of acetylcholine leading to the end plate potential on the muscle cell membrane. That leads to opening of voltage gated sodium channel. Only if it reaches the threshold, it will lead to the production of the action potential formation on the muscle cell membrane, which will then be propagated throughout the muscle cell fiber. What will happen to the acetylcholine on the background? It will be degraded in a few seconds by the acetylcholine esterase, and it will stop working. Whereas the action potential which was produced on the muscle cell membrane, it will travel down through the transverse tubules inside the muscle fibers, which will then be communicated to the sarcoplasmic reticulum, that is by the excitation contraction coupling. We will be looking that in detail in another lecture. And this excitation contraction coupling will lead to the release of calcium from the sarcoplasmic reticulum to the sarcoplasm. And this calcium is then going to lead to the muscle contraction. As soon as the muscle signal is over, there is no more action potential, calcium will be pumped back into the sarcoplasmic reticulum and the muscle will relax. That is the general mechanism of muscle contraction. Now let's have a look at the molecular mechanism of muscle contraction. That is what happens when the calcium is released into the sarcoplasm and how does it lead to the muscle contraction. When the muscle contracts, the basic unit of the muscle that contracts, this is the sarcomere. This is the relaxed state of the sarcomere and this is the contracted state of the sarcomere. Here it is essential to appreciate that the skeletal muscle contraction as trigger leads to the shortening of the sarcomere, but the myofilaments do not shorten. Skeletal muscle, when shortened, sarcomere shorten, but myofilaments, that is thick and thin filaments, they do not shorten. Rather, they slide past over each other. As you can appreciate, the thick filaments surrounded by the thin filaments are interdigitated across each other in the relaxed state. When the sarcomeres contract and shorten, the myofilaments only, they overlap each other rather than decreasing in the length, and this concept is known as sliding filament model, that the muscle contract as the filaments slide past over each other. There is no change in the filament length, only their positioning change, leading to the shortening of the sarcomere as well as the shortening of the skeletal muscles. Now let's have a look of relaxed versus contracted state of the sarcomere. In the relaxed state, actin filaments from the opposite Z disc are barely overlapping, and the sarcomere, as its maximum relaxing length, of course it can elongate further, but this is the resting length of the skeletal muscles at which most of the skeletal muscles operate. The actin filaments have barely started to overlap each other. Whereas after contraction, you can see the overlap of actin filaments has increased. And if we have a clear look at the I band, H band and MA band, let's have a look what has happened to these. I band, this area, in case of shortening or contraction, this has reduced. H band, this area, this has also much reduced, and in case of extreme muscle contraction as shown in this image as well, this may even disappear. There is no area of the myosin filament which is not surrounded by the actin filament, and the A band, which is the complete span of thick filament, this is not going to change, as the myosin filament is only staying of its length, which was in case of relaxed as well as the contracted skeletal muscle. So this is still the same. So what happened? Actin filaments slided over the myosin filaments. There was more overlap of the actin filaments. Z disc moved closer. I band, H band were shortened, while the A band is still constant. So have a quick recall of this molecular arrangement of the thick filament and thin filament. If you recall, we know that the interaction of actin and myosin is inhibited because of the troponin-tropomyosin complex, as it is blocking the binding site of the actin molecules. Whereas it is facilitated by the calcium, which adds to the troponin C, and troponin C moves the tropomyosin out of the way. There is also some role of magnesium in facilitating this interaction. This is facilitated by the ATP, an essential precursor for the skeletal muscle contraction, and by the displacement of the troponin and tropomyosin complex. Now we will have a look at the cross-bridge cycling, how the actin and myosin filaments actually interact to lead to the sarcomere shortening. This is explained by the walk-along theory, or we also call it Rachet theory. In the image below, you can see the sliding filament model where the myosin filaments and actin filaments are sliding past over each other. Whereas in the image above, you can see the molecular mechanism by which actin and myosin are interacted, and this is going to be explained by the walk-along theory, how the heads of the myosin travel along or walk along the actin filaments while pulling the actin filaments to the center of the sarcomere on the both sides, ultimately leading to the shortening of the sarcomere. So myosin heads walks along the actin filaments. Each head works independently. Multiple heads continuously keep on attaching and detaching, leading to the continuous contraction and step by step pulling the actin filaments to the center of the sarcomere. This is the complete cross-bridge cycling. and we will see its steps one by one. And we will start our discussion by the cleavage of ATP, which is the essential precursor of skeletal muscle contraction. When the attached ATP to the head of myosin is hydrolyzed, hydrolysis of ATP, this leads to formation of ADP plus phosphate and release of enormous energy which is stored in the myosin head. And at this moment, we call the myosin head the cogged state. The head of the myosin with the hydrolyzed ADP attached is called as cogged myosin or the activated myosin head. This has the energy stored from the hydrolysis of ATP. And here is an important point to understand over here. After hydrolysis of ATP by the ATPase, the ADP is not released, but it stays attached to the myosin head. So this is the, let's say, the first step where the myosin head is activated and converted to the cogged state. What will this myosin head now want? This will now want to attach to the actin molecule. Unless and until it is activated, it will not be ready to attach to the actin filament. Now that it is activated, it wants to attach to the actin filament, but the problem is there. The active sites of the actin filament is blocked by the tropomyosin. So here comes the second important precursor of the skeletal muscle contraction, which is the calcium. As soon as the calcium arrives attached to the troponin and tropomyosin moves out of the way, the active sites on the actin filaments will be exposed, and now the cogged myosin head will be capable of attaching to the active sites on the actin filament. So next step would be actin myosin binding. As soon as the actin head attached to the myosin filament, there will be the next step called the power stroke. So what is the power stroke? Power stroke is the conformational change in the head of the myosin filament. Previously, as we say, the head was activated. It was of this conformation because of carrying the energy from the hydrolysis of ATP. As soon as it attaches to the actin filament, there is a conformational change. The head will tilt to this state from perpendicular to the tilted state, and this is known as the power stroke. And this power stroke, when moves the head of the myosin from this state to this state, it also pulls the actin filament from here to the center of the sarcomere. So this is how the hinges over here and over here help in conformational change of the myosin head. And when the myosin head moves, it also moves the actin filament, providing the longitudinal force towards the center of the sarcomere or towards the M line. And this keeps on happening, and the actin keeps on moving towards the center of the sarcomere. One important event that occurs along with the power stroke is the release of ADP. ADP was attached since the head was cogged till the attachment to the actin filament. As soon as this conformational change occurs, the ADP is also released. So this is the point, the power stroke at which ADP was released. As soon as ADP was released, the site for attachment of ATP was free, and now another molecule of ATP will arrive and attach the site. ADP got released and ATP got attached. The head is still in that state, and this ATP has arrived. And the most important function of this ATP right now is to provide detachment. The myosin head is attached to the actin filament. As soon as the ATP arrives, there will be detachment. And you can recall the concept of rigor mortis. After that, when there is depletion of ATP, the detachment of myosin into actin becomes impossible, leading to the extreme muscle rigidity and contraction state. So ATP came and there was detachment of myosin head from the actin filament. As soon as it was detached, there was again the activity of ATPase that led to hydrolysis of ATP to ADP. that ADP remains attached, leading to again recocking of the myosin head. You can again see the conformational change. It has gone into the cock state, and the energy is stored inside where the ADP is still attached. What will happen next is the story that we have just discussed. The cocked head will attach to the actin filament. If the calcium is available, that will lead to the power stroke. That will be followed by release of ATP and attachment of ATP, which will lead to the detachment of the myosin head, again hydrolysis, and this will keep on going until the calcium is available and until the ATP is available, both necessary precursors of the skeletal muscle contraction. And by doing this, the myosin heads will keep on moving the actin filaments to the center of sarcomere, and this is what we call the molecular mechanism of muscle contraction, or we call it cross-bridge cycling. The cyclical attachment and detachment, also we call it ratchet thread. Rigor mortis occurs several hours after death, as you know, in which muscles become rigid and fixed. The cause is ATP depletion. Without ATP, the myosin heads cannot detach from the actin. The cross bridge remains attached, leading to the muscle stiffness. This begins 3 to 4 hours after death, peaks in 10 to 12 hours, and it ends after 50 to 25 hours when the muscle proteins have been proteolized by the catalytic enzymes. Another related aspect, the Fenn effect. When a muscle contracts, work is performed, energy is required, which is provided by ATP. More the work performed, more the ATP is used, and more the speed and strength of contraction is developed. And this relationship is known as Fenn effect, F-E-N-N. So that's all about the mechanics of muscle contraction. And now we will have a quick look at how the muscles relax. As we discussed the neuromuscular junction transmission, we said acetylcholine was released on the motor end plate, and the acetylcholine was then catalyzed by the acetylcholine esterase. So when there will be no more signal, the action potential in the motor end plate will no more be produced, and the muscle contraction will stop. One of the ways by which skeletal muscle relaxes, but there is another thing that needs to be recycled, the calcium which was released from sarcoplasmic reticulum to the sarcoplasm. This also needs to be captured back. Only then the skeletal muscle will relax. Number one, there is no more signal from the neuronal terminal. Number two, the calcium which was released needs to be pumped back. So relaxation begins when the action potential stops and there is no more calcium coming into the sarcoplasm, plus the already released calcium is sent back. And who sends it back? By the Sarca pump. Sarcoplasmic reticulum calcium ATPase pump is known as Sarca. It actively returns calcium to the sarcoplasmic reticulum lateral sacs, and it requires again ATP for its functioning. As soon as the calcium is sent back, the cross-bridge cycling and actin-myosin interaction will stop, and of course the muscles will come back to their relaxed state. So this is how the molecular mechanism of muscle relaxation it works. So that's all about the general and molecular mechanism of skeletal muscle contraction.